Hi, I'm Carol O'Mara, horticulture entomologist with Colorado State University Extension here in Boulder County. It's May, the weather is warmed up, and it's time to get those gardens into the ground. If you haven't already prepared your garden for planting, take time now to prepare the soil. That's the foundation of good plant health, and one that we can't ignore. What you do to your garden to get the soil ready really depends on the age of the garden that we're working with. If it's brand new, just cut, then it probably doesn't have a lot of organic material in it, and you'll need to think about adding a couple of inches across the surface and then tilling it in just to get organic matter up to the levels that we want it to be over the next few years. But if your garden has been in place for 4 years, 5 years or longer, you're dealing with a more mature garden soil, one that probably is closer to the 4 to 5% organic material that we want to see in a garden soil. So if you have an older garden, take heart, they get better with age, but the young ones, they need a little bit of help. And for that, we're going to take a look today at a few of the amendments that you can put into your garden to help boost that soil. When you decide what type of amendments to put into your soil, it can get a little bit confusing. There is a lot of information out there. If you're surfing the web for some type of advice on what to add, you might be getting information that works really, really well in other states, especially the ones on the eastern seaboard where they have more acid in the soil. They may not work so well out here. So the first two things let's take a look at are going to be myth busting. For Colorado, one of the things that you might hear is that we need to add gypsum to our soils. That's not true here. We have plenty of gypsum, which in this case is a bag of calcium sulfate and a little bit of sulfur. This is a very, very powderized mineral that forms very slick crystals that lay on top of one another. You can see here it's touted as being one of those things to bust up clay. But because we have so much of it already here in Colorado, enough that we are one of the states that they mine this from, it's just a waste of your time and money to put something back into the soil that we already have. It's kind of a mess to work with a little bit. When you're working with a fine dust like this, you do want to take care that you have a nice breeze like we do today to kind of whisk these particles away from you, or wear a mask if you're sensitive. The other thing you might be hearing about is a little bit of addition of Epsom salts into the soil, and that boosts plants' ability to look green and grow lushly. Let's take a look at what Epsom salts really is. This is basically just a magnesium sulfate. That's all it is Epsom salts. When we put this into the soil of an area that has acid soils, it really does help plants grow, because acid soils keeps magnesium from being taken up into the plant. We don't have that out here in Colorado. What we deal with is the opposite thing. We have alkaline soils. We have plenty of magnesium, and because the alkalinity of our soil pH is not affecting plant take-up, adding more magnesium in the form of Epsom salts is really not going to do anything, but again, waste your time and money. What we really want to focus on here in Colorado is adding organic material to our soils. Adding organic material is going to break up our soil. When you get fine clay, it really is tiny. The particles are slick and they're a little bit glued together. What this organic material is going to do is break that up. It's going to hold on to water better than some of the sandier soils out east. It's going to hold on to nutrients too, without becoming heavy and bogged down like the clay soils. Here are two products that you might be able to buy if you want to get them in quantity. One is sphagnum peat moss. We like this for Colorado. It's slightly acidic, it's nice and airy and fluffy, and you can just add it into your soil, mix it right in. It helps a little bit acidify what we have, and it provides a lot of water holding and nutrient holding for our plants. You can get them in small bags like this, but when we're really talking about a garden's worth of peat moss, you're going to be buying it in bales. Another thing for us to look at is compost. Compost is the thing that I really recommend for all garden applications, especially if it's plant-based. Compost is a renewable resource that we can make out of a lot of spent plant materials right in our own backyard. But if you want to get started and you don't have a compost pile, or you live in an HOA that doesn't like to see anything rot, well, go ahead and get bagged compost. But be careful. you never know where they got their sources from. Mushroom compost can be quite nice, but in this case it's pretty wet. It's a little bit heavy, but you can see it's nice and rich in color, and it's really just formed of an awful lot of organic material. This is good stuff to add into our soil here. You can see we can just turn it in a little bit and it'll break up our soil. The third thing that we want to look at that is one of the best ways to recycle is going to be animal manures. Animal manures are one of those time-honored traditions for adding to any type of a vegetable garden. And for the most part, it is a really wonderful way to recycle a lot of the nutrients that come out of our horses, cows, sheep, and those types of animals. This pile that we're standing by here is horse manure, and it is really good stuff. The important thing is that it's still nice and crumbly. It's been composted down a bit and dried out. That's very important for adding any type of an animal manure to the garden. One of the things that you have to be careful about, and I can't stress enough, is that when you're adding any type of a manure to the garden, you need it to be aged 4 months or longer. All animals have a bit of E. coli in their gut, and that's excreted when they go ahead and produce waste. If you're using fresh manures, you're adding that E. coli right into your garden. And when we get any type of strong driving rains or your irrigation sprinkles on it, you can be adding that E. coli, you can be splashing it up onto your plants for you and your family to eat. We want to try to avoid that. So, like this particular horse manure, you want something that's been well aged. Again, 4 months or longer. And then you want to make sure it's in different sizes. As you can see here, we have the finely particle ones that's drying out, and we still have these huge chunks that'll break down slowly over time. This is great, rich material to add into our soil. Some of the manures that we can use are horse, cow, sheep, chicken if you want to, anything that's an herbivore. The types of manures that we really have to avoid are anything that are from carnivores. That means you, your dog, your cat, anything that can eat meat or has been designed to eat meat. We want to avoid those types of manures. They just introduce a whole host of parasites and other problems into the garden that are better left aside. And it doesn't matter if your Fluffy is a purebred. You want to stay away from using their manure. Once you've decided what type of soil amendment you'd like to use on your garden, it's time to add it into the soil. In this case, we're going to take this compost and we're going to pour it on. In a young garden, what we want to do is make sure it's about 2 inches thick across the surface of the garden, and then we're going to till that in. Older gardens, you don't need that much. With an older garden, what you want is about 1 inch, that's all. Take care that you're not adding too much. The one problem that most new gardeners make is that they try to get instant soil. This is a slow process. It's an exercise in patience. Think of it as a marathon, not a sprint. Go ahead and add 2 inches of the compost across the surface and till it in if you have a young garden. In the fall, add another 2 inches. And then in the spring, add another 2 inches after that. If you add too much into your soil at once, you run the risk of having a lot of soluble salts build up. That's one of the things we have to be really, really careful about, especially in our suburban, urban environments where we might be using water softeners that also add salt into the soil. So once we've got it spread out, all we have to do is grab our shovel and till it in. We want to turn this amendment into the soil so that it is about as deep as the roots will grow. Depending on what you want to plant into your garden, you want to make sure it goes down at least 6 to 8 inches. Some of your larger plants like tomatoes, well, if you can get the soil return down to about 1 foot, that'd be even better. But we're just turning it in by hand. Or you can use a rototiller. You can make it a garden party. Everybody grabs a shovel.